not bad looking, to be honest.
If you go for that type.
Well, I ain't never been that picky.
Ahoy folks, Craig from Pure Xbox here, and in this video we're reviewing the Outlast Trials because this co-op horror game has officially come out of early access with the release of version 1.0 and is launching on Xbox and PlayStation consoles. Now, before we get going, this review was written by PJ O'Reilly for PureXbox.com and turned into a video by me. Alright then, let the trials begin.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, the state accuses my client of kidnapping, torture, and mutilation of 4 men and women. To which I say, where is your evidence of these heinous crimes?
Red Barrels has somehow been making Outlast games for a full 10 years now, and although a few of us here are not huge fans of this franchise in general, it just isn't the kind of scary that we like, we do, however, appreciate the things it does just a little differently than others. Of course, we're talking about the fact that these games give players heightened senses of perception, then all but remove the ability to defend yourself, leading to hours and hours of skulking around incredibly unwelcoming environments, mostly in low light and or night vision mode, as you avoid very silly enemies and work towards completing a series of menial tasks ad nauseum. Does that sound like fun? Let's keep going. The original mainline series, Outlast and Outlast 2, cast you as a fully fleshed out character, a journalist if we remember correctly, and hopefully a games one, and in this prequel spin-off there are ties to the wishy-washy narrative that ran through those games for fans to point and shout at. However, don't expect a story that has anywhere near enough meat to actually dig into and enjoy, as any narrative here is simply a means to direct you to all these Saw-style sneaking around and getting murderized. And in this regard, the Outlast Trials remains way too similar to its forebearers. As a game that's been in early access on PC since back in May of last year, there's plenty of polish on display in terms of the wonderfully detailed and hugely atmospheric police stations, fairground, and, well, creepy orphanages that you get to sneak around, and there's even a brand new level that's been added for this console release as well. However, as nice as all of this shiny new stuff is, we just can't get around the fact that mechanically and in terms of a non-existent ability to shock and or scare, we find ourselves unsatisfied and disinterested in the core gameplay loop here. Add a couple of pals and it gets better than the witheringly dreary solo experience, but the fact remains that it's all a little too dull and repetitive to hold our attention for very long.
I wish your mother was here to see you die.
In the Outlast Trials, you're cast into a Murkoff facility where you and a bunch of other unfortunate individuals who can be played by your pals have to complete a gauntlet of suitably disgusting trials involving lots of blood, amputations, keys hidden in bodies, pee and poop, and instant deaths from nowhere that'll have you lobbing your controller at your TV. It's a cool concept, ripe for all manner of experimentation, narrative twists, gameplay surprises, and oh now wait, none of that happens, but they do have a lot of blood. Indeed, one of our main complaints with this series over the years has been how it seems to approach the idea of fear as something that is born out of a man electrocuting his own testicles while stood in a large body of water, or a fountain of crimson red spurting impossible amounts of heart juice all over the ceiling. It's a very adolescent approach, one that suits the Saw style well, but it's so loud and nasty, and it's just in no way mentally frightening or disturbing. Unless, you know, rolling our eyes is some sort of sign that we've suitably discolored our loins. The various stages you're funneled through as you fight for your freedom are full of rather boring enemies who hover around crucial points of interest as well, like, you know, it wouldn't hurt to have them do proper patrols and whatnot. And as you don't have any weapons, you'll need to crouch all of the time and move slowly around areas. But be careful, there are patches of glass on the floor, cans hanging on strings, and a bunch of other things that we've never seen in a video game before that, you guessed, can alert the enemies to your location. If this happens, you'll need to hide in a bin, or a locker, or under a desk in plain sight. Wait for the enemy to forget you are there, and this is the really good bit where you just don't do anything, and then just continue to plod around and fix circuits or hold down buttons for a set amount of time. To be fair, each trial here does mix things up well in terms of themes, and they all have their own enemy types and challenges, but scratch below it all a little and you'll quickly find it's all much of a muchness with regards to the things that you'll spend time doing. Add in some friends and all of this incredibly dull business does become somewhat fun. Now, it's not fun in the way that you might expect from a horror game like tense, sweaty, scary, and all of that stuff, but it does descend into a complete farce of chaos often enough that shouting at your pals, trying to move through areas and work as a unit with the game's simple command system, well, there are good times to be had with the right people.
These are my radios!
It's hard to keep smiling though. Honestly, with dodgy AI and harder difficulties are just straight up unfair in how telepathic your foes can be, night vision batteries that keep running out, and so many deaths that you could just never see coming, it feels like a bitter war of patience attrition in single player. And in multiplayer, things manage to rise to, well, say not bad. If you've enjoyed what Outlast has served you up so far, then you'll likely have a good enough time here, as long as you have friends along for the ride. However, overall, we reckon much more could have been done to infuse what is genuinely a good idea for a horror game with some actual proper scares, meaningful teamwork aspects, far more interesting and varied objectives, and enemies who are up for a bit more than just standing around and waiting. Not bad for fans then, but a much harder recommendation for anyone else. The Outlast Trials is a cool idea, a spin-off that funnels players through a gauntlet of twisted levels with a game show Saw-like movie vibe. However, as good as it all looks and sounds, the core gameplay here is just way too bland and repetitive. It's in no way scary, and the only real fun to be had here is getting a bunch of pals together to laugh at your misfortunes and all of the violence that ensues. There are plenty of levels and tons of customization for fans to dig into, but this is a series that just repeatedly fails to engage us in any meaningful way. So, that's the long and short of it all, but I have a question for you now. Considering how the Outlast Trials isn't exactly scary in the same way as its solo outings, do you reckon attaching the Outlast IP to this game set a level of expectation from its audience? And by not delivering on that expectation, it actually suffers by affiliation. Do we reckon it would have been better if it was called something else, like a much more ambiguous The Murkoff Trials or something like that? Maybe. Be sure to voice your opinion in the comments and whether or not you'll pick it up. And remember to check out purexbox.com for more reviews like this one, as well as subscribing to the channel here too. Thanks for watching. All that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!